Hey folks, welcome back to Safe Money Retirement. This is Dan Oweiler, your retirement professor. In our last segment, we started off talking about the different types of annuities. We talked about an income or immediate annuity that provides income to you immediately. Then we talked about the tax-deferred annuity or the single premium deferred annuity that gives us a little bit of tax advantages because the interest is tax-deferred. It's very safe, very secure. I'm going to finish up our segment this week on the two remaining types of annuities, the first one being what is called a variable annuity. Now there's a lot of different, if you went onto the onto the internet and you Googled annuities, you would probably have 350 to 400,000 different hits that you could make. And there's going to be people on both sides of the aisles whether or not they like annuities or they hate annuities. And it just depends on which side of the table you're sitting on. I know that Ken Fisher hates annuities because the reason he hates annuities is because he's an asset manager, and when you invest in annuities, you take assets away from his management team, and he no longer uses or is able to get an asset fee for that. So it depends on which side of the table you're sitting on as to whether or not this might fit for what your needs are. But a variable annuity basically invests in different types of mutual funds, meaning that each insurance contract or each insurance company has probably 15 or 20 or 30 different funds that you could allocate your investment to. If we've always talked about using, say, $250,000, you could allocate your $250,000 into different types of mutual funds, whether it's international or growth or small cap, large cap. They all have these opportunities for you to invest, meaning that if the market does really well, it goes up 40%, you could do very well. However, in this type of contract, unlike the other two that we discussed, your principal is not guaranteed. Okay? We're okay as long as the market goes up 40%, but it can also do what? It can go down 40%, which would impact your principal. Okay? So, depending upon what your needs are, if you want more risk for higher and get higher returns, a variable annuity might be a good vehicle because any interest that you earn is tax deferred and you don't have to pay taxes on it as it's been accumulating. Unlike a mutual fund that sends you a 1099 every year for capital gains that might have been traded during the year in that mutual fund, you do not get a 1099 at the end of the year unless you've taken money out of there. So it is tax deferred, okay, which is a good thing. However, there are annual fees that you are going to be paying on a variable annuity. In a variable annuity, I've seen them run, an average of 2.5%. I've seen them as high as 4.5% every year. Okay? Meaning that on $2.5 or $250,000, if you had 4%, that's $10,000 a year you could end up paying in fees. Over a 10-year period, that's $100,000. Well, if the market's been going up 20 or 30%, that's okay. But you don't want to be paying those fees when the market is going down because then you're not only losing value in your principal, you're also losing value as a result of the fees. And so, as I work with people in retirement, we tend to get a little bit more conservative as we get older and we want to move into retirement. Variable annuities, they've been used by brokerages, broker companies that utilize this because they believe in the market. All right. Depending upon what your needs are. For the last 8 years, it's been a good thing because the market's been going up. But now might be the time to say, okay, how long is this bull market going to last? Is it time to be able to maybe look at a different option for me? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It just depends on what your needs are. All right? So a variable annuity has higher risk, higher returns, but it just depends on what your needs are. The final contract that has been very popular over the last few years is what I call it a hybrid, but it's actually what is called a fixed indexed annuity. And a fixed indexed annuity kind of takes the best of the variable, which has market upside, but it also takes the protection of of the fixed interest annuity because your principal is guaranteed here. Meaning that no matter what the market does, the principal is going to be guaranteed. And every year you have the option of choosing either a fixed interest return, kind of like the fixed interest annuity, or you can tie it to one of the stock market indexes like the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones or the Russell or whatever it might be. The difference being is that if the market drops 20%, we just get credited zero that year because our principal is guaranteed. Okay? So the advantage to this is we can tie our returns to a stock market index, but if the market goes down, we just stay level. We don't earn anything, but we don't lose anything. Now the downside to this is that if the market goes up 10%, we're not going to get all 10 of it. We're probably going to get 4 or 5%. If the market went up 10 or 12%, we're probably going to get 4 or 5 of that. Well, what I have found with some of the clients that I've worked with in the past is they're willing to give up some of the upside to protect them against the downside. All right? I've come to the conclusion that in retirement, it's not how much money we make in life, it's how much money we keep. And so a fixed indexed annuity allows us to protect our principal, but also give us upside potential. And so many times I find that people are saying, hey, the market's at an all-time high. Can I change from a variable annuity to a fixed interest annuity or a fixed indexed annuity and not pay any taxes on that? We can do that. It's called a 1035 exchange. And that's kind of like a 1031 exchange in real estate. We can change from one annuity to another annuity without having any tax consequences. So if our $250,000 has accumulated over a few years and it's now worth $350,000, you can actually take that $350,000, transfer it into the fixed indexed annuity for $350,000, and that's now guaranteed never to go down because of the market. The other nice thing about here is there are no fees. Okay? No fees. It depends upon, what the market does will depend upon your return. Knowing that if we choose wrong and the market goes down 20%, the worst thing that happens to us is that we just get zero for the year. Okay? Now every year you can switch over to fixed or indexed depending upon what your needs are. Okay? If the market happens to be going down like it did in 2008, we can come over to fixed interest and earn 1 or 2% in the fixed interest account while the market's going down. So there's opportunities here, folks, to really secure your retirement, move out of perhaps some things that are at risk in the market like mutual funds or variable annuities or whatever it might be, because the market really is at an all-time high. For the past 7 years, since 2008, we've had a bull market. The average bull market lasts no longer than 6 years. I don't know what the market's going to do. All I know is at some point we're going to have a major correction because our economy can't keep supporting what this monetary policy has been doing. Is just printing money in the in the Treasury. And that money's had to go somewhere, and it's been going into the market. At some point, interest rates are going to start going back up. We're going to have a major correction. Do you want to put that money at risk that you have in some of these mutual funds or variable annuities or whatever it might be? This gives us a good option to still have some growth potential, but it might also protect the principal that you've got invested at this point. If you'd like to sit down and discuss some of these concepts that we've talked about, my number's on the screen. You can give me a call. I'd be happy to sit down with a complimentary consultation with you. I'll sit down, discuss what your hopes and dreams are, what your goals are, see whether or not any of these things might make sense for you. Hopefully, you'll have a good retirement. This is Dan Oweiler, your retirement professor, hoping that you have a safe money retirement. Thank you.
you have confidence in your retirement future, you can live the life you've always imagined. Because of planning, you now have time to reflect on the wonderful memories of your life. You and your spouse finally have the luxury of leisure time together. To spend fun times with your grandkids, sharing the joy of their excitement about life. Smiling at the thought of quality time with your children and of picking up the check. At last, you have time to breathe and rekindle the love of your life. Why? Because you imagined what could be. You planned for retirement. So today, you own your future.